Present.
Commissioner Tidmore
Here.
and Commissioner Young.
Here.
Okay, Commissioner Berry and Commissioner Naquette are both absent.
Okay. Did we have a chance to go over the minutes from the February meeting? Anybody need to point anything out or make any changes? If not, the chair is willing to entertain a motion.
I didn't see anything, so motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, those in favor of passing them or approving the minutes, aye?
Aye.
John, was
Aye.
that an aye? Okay,
Aye. Yes.
no nays.
Young, yes.
Okay, aside from the upcoming application, do we have any other visitors or public comments? Any staff reports before we get to the application? Okay. The public hearing before the Independence Historic Preservation Commission is now open for application CA 202103, a request to demolish a house and garage at 46 North Walnut Street. Do any commissioners need to disclose any conflicts of interest, bias, ex parte contacts, or site visits? Oregon Land.
No.
Yeah. Actually, that's all I need to say, I guess.
I mean, I've driven past it, but that's about it.
Okay.
I was not-
Oregon land use law requires several items to be read into the record at the beginning of each and every public hearing. Staff has some of that now.
Perfect. Hi there, everybody. So here we go. The applicable substantive criteria upon which the case will be decided are found in the Independence Development Code, subchapter 59, Historic Preservation. These criteria are addressed in the staff report and will be read and summarized by staff during the presentation of the staff report. All testimony, arguments, and evidence presented must be directed toward these criteria or other criteria in the Independence Comprehensive Plan or Independence Municipal Code, which the speaker believes to apply to the decision. The failure of anyone to raise an issue accompanied by statements of or evidence sufficient to afford this commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue will preclude appeal to the City Council and the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, LUBA, based on that issue. An issue which may be the basis for an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals shall be raised not later than the close of the record at or following the final evidentiary hearing on the proposal before the city. Such issues shall be raised and accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the commission and the parties an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the city to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court.
We will now hear the staff report.
Perfect. So hi there, everybody. It is very good to be with you today. We are here to consider a demolition of the building at 46 North Walnut. I do have some pictures that we can sort of show. I'll go ahead and pull some of those up. Let me share my screen. So these are really nice pictures, I thought. The applicant provided these. They make the house look, I mean, that looks really, I mean, that's a beautiful picture for a really rundown house at this point. So anyways, this structure was constructed in 1885. with later historic additions. The main portion of the house is this portion right here. You can't really see my mouse. This portion of the house. This is what was constructed in 1885. It's about 16 by 16 square, and then goes up 2 stories. The structure is considered a primary contributing structure to the historic district as of the 1989 survey, and eligible contributing in the 2012 resurvey. The garage too, which is back here, and you can see here, I do also have some photos right here. Can you see that? Am I sharing the right screen? Can you see that garage right there?
There you go. Yep.
Front of the
This
garage.
this is the garage for the structure. This is also considered a contributing structure to the district. Perfect. So this proposal seeks to demolish both the home and the garage. You'll note in the staff report that it includes a description of the buildings. I really like this description of the buildings, and I'll just call out that it says that the original settler in the building was a scholar, a linguist, and an accomplished violinist and school teacher. And I just think, not all of our designations include nuggets like that about the person who owned the building originally. And I just got to say, I would love to know a scholar, a linguist, and an accomplished violinist. So anyways, he was a well-accomplished, well-educated person, it sounds like. This project would demolish the site, and it doesn't propose a subsequent project. We anticipate that a future project will be proposed, but we do not have that project at this point. We anticipate that it will be a residential project, and that it will come to you for a future hearing to make sure that it's consistent with the district.
Fred?
Yes.
On attachment A, it says description of the project. And I highlighted, it says demo existing home and either move 275 Monmouth onto property or build a period looking home to replace the existing home. That's
The application isn't for a specific project. I think that those were some ideas that were just being ballparked out there.
Right, and the applicant, I mean, when he gives his presentation, he will make it clear that the movement of 275 Monmouth is not going to happen at this point. That concept has fallen through based on subsequent conversations with that property owner.
okay.
So-
Well, thank you.
Continuing on, so the applicant has submitted a number of materials to support this application. He submitted a structural observation detailing the condition of the building. He submitted a PowerPoint presentation, which he will go through with you folks. And he did submit cost estimates about what it would take to rehabilitate the building. Those are all included in your staff report. Now, looking at this, you folks know we went through this just recently, that there's 3 criteria to approve of a demolition. Those 3 criteria are in the staff report. The first is no prudent or feasible alternative to the demolition or relocation of the building exists. The second is the building or structure is deteriorated beyond repair and cannot be rehabilitated on the site to provide a reasonable economic return compared to other structures. The third is there is a demonstrated public need. Basically, looking at this, we feel that the second criteria is effectively met by this application. I note in the staff report that it's very likely that the first criteria could be met as well, because he cannot actually find a home mover that's willing to lift the structure. But I didn't analyze that first criteria. Instead, I looked at the second criteria, and based on the materials that he submitted, it appears clear that any sort of work done to the building would not provide an economic return to the structure. Part of the reason for
Yeah,
that
we got
is,
some background noise.
was that?
It's gone now that you stopped talking. I could hear some background noise. I was wondering what it was.
Oh yeah, no, there's coworkers talking. So I was
Gotcha.
trying, yeah, they've stopped talking. So I'll keep on going.
Thank you.
So anyways, part of the difficulty and part of the reason that the cost is going to be more expensive than your typical like new home construction or anything like that is the level of complexity associated with this project is quite high. Basically, to do work on this building, the applicant has, and he's studied the property quite well, he would have to take off this piece right here. Also, he'd have to take off the rear of the home, which if you look right now is, I mean, complete, I mean, you can see the bend in that roof, and he would get it down to the original structure. Also, he would likely have to redo the garage because, I mean, right now this door is only, shoot, I'll say 6 feet tall. It's not your typical garage door height. Also, the whole thing is leaning quite significantly. So just rebuilding the home itself is quite complex. You would need to demolish the historic additions on the structure. You would need to lift this structure, and according to the structural report that he has provided, a number of the beams underneath the home are the joists underneath the home are just quite rotten. The surrounding grade drains toward the home, and there's no proper foundation underneath the home, and so there's moisture and a limited clearance underneath the home. So that has contributed to problems underneath the home. He has also sort of acknowledged that if he did expand on the home, he would then or if he did try and redo the house, he would try and rebuild these additions after taking them off, and potentially expand this back, all while doing it around that 16 by 16 building. Also, I mean, there's other costs associated with, I mean, the siding right now, this is on the south side of the house. It is in very poor condition. Also, the porch itself is in very poor condition. So all of those things, all of those items contribute to cost. And based on all of that, it seems clear that there is no what is that condition? There is no there is no way to provide a reasonable economic return compared to other structures in the general area. Now, Mr. Tomson also did provide comparable sales as part of his analysis. So those are noted in the staff report as well. Based on all of those things, staff recommends that you allow the demolition of the structure. We did recommend one condition. The one condition is just that if there's any items that should be preserved either via photo record or anything like that, that you let Mr. Tomson know of those things. So that is that. Are there any questions?
I have one. Can you hear me, Fred?
Yep.
It's Sean. When it goes into some of the details on reusing perhaps framing lumber, reusing upstairs flooring and tongue and groove from the garage. And then on the engineer's report, it talks about how unstable and dangerous the building is. So is it really possible to deconstruct it to use the materials instead of just doing a flat out demolition? I mean, is there a safety issue there that we have to be worried about if we put those conditions on there?
Well,
I actually addressed that in my presentation, that exact issue.
and when I watched them
Okay.
deconstruct the house next door to mine, they just went from the top down. They took everything like piece by piece, and so they were able to, from what I saw, save so much of that lumber, so many of
Good.
the pieces, and
Okay.
yeah, and that house too
Got it.
was unstable.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners for the staff?
Not for staff, no.
Okay, before hearing testimony, all who wish to speak, please fill out a speaker card for Karen. Do we have any testimony other than the applicant? Okay, we will now hear testimony from the applicant.
Perfect. So let me get his PowerPoint on the screen. And he is going to let me know when I'm supposed to switch screens.
All
So
right.
go for it. Mr.
Okay.
Thompson, can you see that? All right.
I can. Yeah, no, I'm good.
Good.
Okay, well, again, thank you everybody for having me today. My name is Kyle Tomson, and I'm here to talk to you about our plans for 46 Walnut. I think I have met some of you in the past because I've been working on this for years, trying to buy this property, and we finally now own it, and so we can actually move forward. But because it's been so long since I've spoken to any of you, and maybe there's some new people, I'd like to just back up just a little bit so you can understand about us and our experience and things like that. So if you give me the next slides, Fred. So my wife and I, Melina, are long-term residents of Salem, and Melina owns a real estate brokerage here in Salem, and she's owned it for about 20 years, and she specializes in historic homes. If you were to hop on our website, you would find that she's written a lot of blogs about historic homes. We have videos of all the historic neighborhoods in Salem, and as a result, a large percentage of her client base actually seek her out because of her expertise with historic homes. And then I split my time between selling real estate, but then I also restore historic homes. And we have done several, and I'm going to tell you about a couple of them real quick. Next slide, Fred. So the very first project we did was actually our office. Our office is just outside Bush Park. It was built in 1895. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. And it is called, and I have to read it because I can never remember, the Burgraff Burt Webster House. And when we bought this about 7 years ago, I don't want to say it was junked out because it wasn't. It was owned by a guy that ran his accounting firm out of it, but suffice to say it needed a lot of love. The front porch that you see here had extensive termite damage and it was failing and taking the roof with it. It had not been painted properly for a very long time. A lot of the boards on the south side were falling off. They had splits. All of the windows had damage. 2 of the windows were falling off and leaking badly. And inside the house, it wasn't any better. There was 7 layers of wallpaper on the walls. The floors had been painted multiple times, asbestos tiles over on top of that, carpet on top of that, nailed into the floor with, I don't even want to think about how many hundreds of nails. All of the original fixtures were sitting in a cardboard box in the basement, and they had just slapped up, you know, Father's Day special from Home Depot fluorescent lights, you know, bolted into the ceiling. All the doors were in bad shape, trim was in bad shape. So it wasn't being cared for well at all. If you can give me the next slide. And so we fully restored the home inside and out. This is what it looks like today. You know, we, oops, it's going to the next one. So we, of course, repainted it. We resided the entire south side, plus a few other boards in other places. We rebuilt the porch in its entirety, stabilized the roof. And we also, on the inside, we refinished all the floors. We refinished the doors, all the trim. We took all that wallpaper off. And then we also, in this bathroom shot here, this is what I actually just finished this last month. It was the last piece. These two windows that you see here, they were falling off the house. They were in really, really bad shape. We took those down to a place in Albany that specializes in restoring historic windows and doors. He rebuilt them entirely for us. And then, like these windows were leaking so badly, they had just put in paneling under the windows to kind of hide all the water damage. And they just put, after it got all moldy, another layer of paneling, another layer. There's 4 layers of paneling, underneath these windows, just hiding all the damage. I took all that off, but then the other thing that I did is I took pieces of all the trim from different parts of the house up to a mill up in Portland, and I had all of the trim recreated. I had 8 different profiles that I brought up there and had them make custom knives, and so I could interweave and make this room look exactly like everything else. I did the same thing on the exterior. The siding is an exact replica of the original siding. Even the window trim on the exterior, all the window trim original had fallen off except for one window in the northeast corner, the most protected corner. And I was able to get those pieces off, take them up to the mill. And so I was able to replicate all the window trim on the exterior. You can go to the next slide, Fred. Now, the last project that we finished, it was 1865 Trade Street here in Salem. This one, on the other hand, was a complete junker. This was on the derelict list of Salem. Squatters had been living in this house for a decade. This picture here of the back, and then if you can give me the next picture, Fred. This picture of the front, do not even do it justice for just how big a mess this property was. It took to give you a sense of it, 3 40-yard dumpsters to get all the garbage from the yard and inside the house. There was garbage bags up to your shoulders in every room with little pathways to allow you to walk around the house. There were 2 active roof leaks. One of the roof leaks is being charitable, calling it a roof leak. It's more like a roof waterfall. When we were starting the project, I had to put a 5-gallon bucket under that leak, and I had to empty that bucket every single day during the rainy season. That much water was coming through the roof. There was a structural problem on the east side, on the kind of the right side of the picture you see here. The whole wall was leaning about 10 degrees, and we didn't even notice that when we bought the property because that tree was in the way. It wasn't until the tree came down that we even knew that there was such a major structural problem. If you give me the next slide, Fred. So, and as far as water damage go, this was one of the worst spots. Just to give you a sense of it, here, fir floors rotted out, subfloor rotted out, and even the joists underneath, about 1/3 of them had gotten soft from all the water. This part of the house right here had actually dropped about 1.5 inches because the wood was, well, it was losing the battle. If you give me the next slide, Fred. So this is what the house looks like today. Here is the back of the house. And here is the front of the house. And kind of an interesting thing about the porch posts that you see here. You see that vertical red kind of stripe in the middle of them. That's actually a decorative trim. You can't really see it unless you get up close. But we did that because once we found that leaning wall, when inside the house, we couldn't see the wall leaning, so we couldn't figure out what's going on. Well, it turns out somebody had put a false wall in at some point. And when we took that false wall down, lo and behold, 2 of the original porch posts had buried inside it, saved from the ravages of time. The porch had actually extended quite a bit farther back on the house. And so I was able to very carefully remove that trim, take it back up to the mill, had 80 feet of it run, and then I was able to replicate the posts here. So these posts are exact replicas of the original posts when this house was built. Can you give me the next slide, Fred? We've got some pictures of the inside. We put another post in that pony wall there. And then, we redid, of course, the kitchen. This was, Joyce when we did it. And then what's interesting about this picture is this bathroom is actually directly above that picture I showed you before with all the water damage. Oh, one of the things I want to point out on here is you'll notice that, the sink here is actually a dresser. It is an antique dresser. We went down to the antique store down in Albany and we bought dressers for all of the sinks. We did not go to Lowe's and Home Depot and buy the cheapest, vanity that they had available. We bought an antique piece of furniture, refinished it, and we made that, the vanity. We did not put a fiberglass shower in this bathroom. We had a tiler come in and tile it up to the ceiling. Again, very period, because this house was built in 1901. And that's why we did, oops, you got ahead of me there, Fred. And that's, and one of the things that we do with all of these properties is try and restore the charm that may have been lost, over the years. This house, our office, there was still a lot of charm left. It just needed to be refinished. This one had all the charm had been stripped out. So that's why we did the post. That's why we did, the things in the bathrooms to try and restore some of that charm. And that's actually really important to us. So and both of these homes, our office and this one, actually won beautification awards. Just 3 weeks ago, we won a beautification award for Trade Street. So the moral of the story is that we like doing this, we're good at it, and we are not, we're not shy about taking extreme fixers, and we don't cut corners. We'll spend a little extra money where it makes sense to restore the charm of these properties, because we just love old homes, and this is what we like to do. Okay, so now I'm ready for that next slide. And so that brings me to 46 Walnut. As Fred has, has already talked about, 46 Walnut cannot be saved. If I owned this property 10 years ago, I would not have been able to save this property, and there's a couple of reasons for it. Again, Fred went over them. It makes no economic sense to rebuild it, and I'm going to go over that in some detail. I can't get a contractor to lift the home, to install a foundation. And then last but not least, this house has graduated from being a blight on the neighborhood to being a flat out danger to the neighborhood. So we're going to talk about all of these. Why don't you give me the next slide, Fred? I want to talk about the foundation first. Some of you may be thinking to yourself, Kyle, I don't understand. You obviously are not afraid of extreme fixers, as evidenced by all those pictures you just showed us. And when I look at those pictures of Trade Street, I see a junked out house that's got water damage, kind of the same as 46 Walnut. And yet you were able to save Trade Street, but you're telling us you can't save 46 Walnut. Why not? And that's a legitimate question. The reason why 46 Walnut cannot be saved is that it has a fundamental difference in the way this house was built than all the other properties that we've worked on. With all the other homes we've done, the bottom floor of the house is at least 36 inches off the ground when the house was built. Okay, there was a crawl space, there was room to work, and most of them actually had quite a bit more space than that. And what that allowed somebody to do in the ensuing years is put a proper foundation under the house easily. They didn't have to lift the house up to do it. 46 Walnut does not have that. It is a half step from the sidewalk up to that floor. I actually measured it. It is 12 inches from the dirt to the top of the fir floors inside on the first floor of the building. And the joists underneath, it's about 4 inches from the bottom of the joist to the ground. And then, as Fred indicated, the side yards in the back, they all grade towards the house. And so when it rains, as it does every once in a while in Independence, all that water flows to the lowest part of the property, which is under the house. And when you have over 100 years of 6 months of constant wet and then 6 months of dry, that translates into extreme dry rot. I brought 4 contractors out to look at lifting this house up. And all 4 of them no bid it. Ramjack, Emmett International, Terra Firma, and Zeb Construction. And this is something these companies specialize in. I mean, this is what they do. This is not something they do in every blue moon. They do this every week. None of them would take it on. And the closest I got to a quote was from Ramjack, who sent me an email saying, Kyle, first, it is impossible to lift all of these additions that have been done to the original structure. They were done very poorly and they are barely attached to the building. So you have to demo all of those before we can even talk about trying to restore the original house. And of course, the original house is the living room there, the 16 by 16. And all the other contractors said the exact same thing. They just did it verbally rather than sending me an email. But then Ramjack went further and said, Kyle, in order for us to do this, then you have to get all the dry rot under this house fixed and certified. And once you do that, then call us and we'll take a look at lifting it up. And so I did exactly that. I brought 2 contractors out, R&R Construction, which is a huge company in Salem, and then Wiggers Construction, which specializes in rehabbing homes, to do that, to fix the dry rot under the house. Yeah, they both no bid it too. The guy at R&R Construction said, look, there's no room to work under there. So the first thing we need to do is dig a 3-foot crawl space underneath this house. And the only way that I can do that safely, as my guys are digging 3 feet under the piers, the current piers, is to put steel beams under this house to take all the load so that if one of those piers fails, the house doesn't come down. And so then the problem with that is at some point, I need to be able to connect to some solid wood to make this safe. And there isn't any solid wood left in this house. All your piers or all your posts are completely rotted out. Your joists are completely rotted out. The sill plates attached to the joists on the exterior of the building are rotted out. And even your fir floors are rotted out. There is literally no wood that we can put these steel beams to that can take any kind of load. Now, I took one last run at this 2 weeks ago where I brought a structural engineer out. And I did it mainly because lumber prices have just gone through the roof. I mean, lumber cost is triple what it was a year ago. And if there's a way to save even just the main structure, just so I don't have to buy the lumber for it, hey, I wanted to hear about it. And I wanted to know, hey, is this house really as bad as what all these contractors are saying? Or are they just whining because it might be hard? And the structural engineer not only verified everything the contractors were saying, he went quite a bit further. When he was done, he came out and he says, Kyle, I've been in homes that have been ravaged by fire, really ravaged by fire. Homes that have had a pickup truck run through the front door. Historic homes that have been neglected for 50 years. But never in my career have I ever walked into a house that is as dangerous as this one. This house could collapse at any second. And he expressed surprise that the City of Independence hadn't already condemned it because it was so bad. And he strongly encouraged me to get it down as quickly as possible. He said, Kyle, this house is going to go fast. It's going to be unpredictable when it goes. And if anybody is inside this house or near it, they're going to get killed. Do it fast. And so it is not possible to safely lift any part of this building to get a foundation under it. But next slide, Fred. Before we knew that with any certainty, we gamed it out. We said, okay, what would it cost if we could repair it? And we looked at it 2 ways. One, to rebuild it exactly the way it is now, as a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And then also as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, because our thinking was, well, that's a little bit more valuable house. Maybe it pencils out better that way. You have 3 spreadsheets in front of you, 2 of them with those 2 cost analysis. And then also as a real estate agent, I can pull all the sold comps. And I pulled for the last 6 months, every sold comp in Independence of a 2-1 and a 3-2 of similar square footage and similar lot size. I did not pull a 3-2 that's 3,000 square feet on a half an acre. They all were within plus or minus 10, 15% of what 46 Walnut is. And that's the numbers that you see on that particular spreadsheet. And as you can see from those numbers, there is no number on here that is anywhere close. And these are sold. These are what the homes actually sold for, not list price. There is no home that is sold that is anywhere near the cost of trying to rehabilitate this. And this cost analysis is very accurate. This is based on that Trade Street property we just did, which needed a lot of the same things that this needed. You know, we know what it costs to re-roof a house, to re-plumb it, to to rewire it, to put new siding on, to do new walls, new windows, new floors, new sewer line. We know all that, and those numbers are what are in here. But what makes these, the cost of this so out of sight and makes this so economically unfeasible are three line items, two of them that's on here and then one that's not on here. The very first line item that you see, the house lift and foundation, okay, 60,000 for the 2.1, 65 for the 3.2. 50,000 of that is the lift itself. And that is based on, because we do this, we have clients, this comes up. And so that's based on other jobs that have been quoted out by, you know, Ramjack and some of the others to lift a house up of this size. It's very, very, labor intensive and dangerous to move a house up, and it costs a lot of money to do. The other line item is right above where it says clear title, the demo. You got $25,000 for the demo. And the reason why that's so high is because the dining room, kitchen, bath, and laundry and the master bedroom, they can't really be demoed. It's exactly what one of you was saying, earlier. You have to deconstruct it. You can't just bring the bulldozer in and knock those off because you're going to damage the main house. And there are companies that specialize in that, but it's very labor intensive. It takes a big crew. It takes them weeks to do it. It's dangerous work, and it's very, very expensive. The number that's not in here is what it costs to actually dig that, 36-inch deep crawl space under the house and then fix all the dry rot under the house. I never got a quote from any of the guys for that. I did call Wiggers Construction earlier this week and ask him, hey, give me a ballpark on what that would cost. And he said it would probably be, with labor costs today, about $15,000 I would expect for digging out under the house, and then another $5,000 to repair all the dry rot under it. So you got to add another $20,000 to all these numbers to get to the real number at the end. And so as a result, it makes absolutely no sense economically to try and restore this house. And it is not even close. If you go to the next slide, Fred. But one of the things that I don't want anybody to lose sight of here is just how dangerous this house has become to that entire neighborhood. And it's not because the house is so dilapidated and it's starting to collapse. The neighbors aren't going to walk into this house and spend any time inside it. It is because it is a fire hazard. It is a big fire hazard. Your chief, your fire chief, the Polk County fire chief, wrote a letter to the Oregon Department of Revenue asking them, begging them to not attach a $200,000 income tax lien that the previous owner had on this property so that it would be possible for us to buy it and get rid of this mess. And his argument to the DOR was that it posed a grave fire hazard to the community. And he said that, squatters are, breaking into the house, and it is going to take one person careless with a match or a candle. And this house is going to go up, and it's going to go up so fast, it's going to put other homes at risk too. And he was very right to be concerned about that. That is what keeps me up at night, because people are trying to break into this home right now. I've had to fix the back door 4 times from attempted and successful break-ins. I've had to fix the front door 3 times. I've had to replace the locks on both doors because somebody worked so hard to jimmy them open, the locks wouldn't even open with a key anymore. Somebody is going to be successful, and I can't be there 24/7 to police this, and neither can your police department. And it doesn't even require somebody for the fire hazard, for somebody to actually get into the house. One of the things that we have done, anybody that's driven by it here lately could see, we put a lot of effort into cleaning this property up. We are getting all the garbage outside, out of the house, out of the garage, out of the yard. We've cleared the jungle in the backyard. When we were done with that effort, there was not a scrap of garbage on this property. And I was out there last week. Yeah, there's garbage on the property now. People are hanging out, on this property. And the other thing that I found, we have a little alcove in the back that is covered. There's not a door there, but it's right next to the rear door of the house. And I have it barricaded, but you can get in there if you try hard. There's a pack of diapers in there. Somebody recently has slept in that alcove with a baby, with an infant, on the other side of a door that when you go inside, the floor is completely collapsed and the whole building is peeling away from from the rest of it. Again, carelessness with a candle or a match, and this building is going to go up fast. So from my standpoint as the owner of this property, time is of the essence. I can't get this thing down fast enough because I am so afraid somebody's going to do something stupid, and I'm going to get a call from your fire department in the middle of the night. So next slide, please. So what we are proposing to do is to build a very similar home on the property. Mr. Cressy was born and raised in New Hampshire, which is probably why he put a New England farmhouse on this property. And it's actually a pretty good architecture for the property because it is a very narrow property, but it's very deep. So a New England farmhouse is a really good fit for it. I mean, you couldn't even put a modern home on this if you wanted to. You'd have to put it on sideways. It wouldn't fit width-wise. Now, is it going to be an exact replica of the Cressy house? No. I mean, on top of the house being very non-functional, I also have to adhere to current building codes when I build something new. So it's going to necessitate some changes, but it's going to be close. And we're, again, just like the other projects, we're not going to cut corners here. I saw a photo of the original Cressy house. The porch actually had peeled log porch posts, in one of the photos that I saw. Well, it doesn't have peeled log porch posts now. It's got, ugly pressure treated 2x4s holding that porch up. We plan on putting peeled log porch posts on this to kind of replicate the original look of the Cressy house. You can still get them. They're hideously expensive, but you can still get them. And then we plan on reusing as much as we can, reusing any framing lumber that we can, reusing the upstairs flooring, which is still in pretty good shape. The ceiling of the garage has some very nice tongue and groove. And we're going to incorporate all of that into this build. So while it won't be the Cressy house, part of the Cressy house will live on. I do want to address the one thing about salvage and photographs, because Fred, you did put in your staff report, you wanted to be consulted on that, which is fine. If we're going to, have people come take a look at the house for that kind of thing, I would like that to happen as quickly as possible so that we're not getting any delays here. I would say we have to limit it to one person plus myself at a time. I would not want the entire Historical Society in there at the same time because I do worry about the floors collapsing under us. And there are about half the house it's no longer safe to go into, so we can't get to everything. And the other thing I want to point out is I'm actually pretty limited on photographers. Two of my best photographers that really do really good artistic stuff, they went to the house, they refused to walk in. I'm not walking into a house that's that dilapidated. They just felt it was too dangerous for them. So the photographer that took the photos that I sent you, it's a younger photographer, not quite as artistic as the others, but he was the only one I could get to go into the building. And then the other thing, as far as the salvage that I want to be clear about is, the garage is on a slab. And so I can very easily add cross bracing for lateral support so that I can get the ceiling tongue and groove out safely pre-demo. I cannot do that in the main house. It's far too dangerous to be in there. And quite frankly, that upstairs floor is about the only good wood that's left. And it is providing lateral support and probably partially preventing this house from already falling down. And I cannot be in a position where I'm upstairs removing the only structural member that's left. And then if the house starts to tilt, I rush down the stairs real quick and try and get out the front door before it falls on top of me. If I'm caught upstairs when that happens, I'm not going to get injured. I'm going to be dead. So, and so as far as framing lumber and the flooring upstairs, we have to tip over this house first. And then I've already spoken with the demo folks, and then I'm going to be there. And then we're going to salvage all of that. They're not just bringing the bulldozers in and putting everything in the dumpster. We're going to save every scrap of lumber that we can. But this house is so dangerous right now. We can't do it beforehand. So, and then last slide, Fred. So in conclusion, it is not economically feasible to restore 46 Walnut. The cost associated with restoring this would be far more than the house is worth when you're done, and far, far more than it would cost to build a new home on the site, even a historic home, you know, a New England farmhouse, which is not the cheapest architecture to build. And while that is an interesting exercise to go through all the costing, it really doesn't matter that much, because without a foundation, you can't do any of it anyway. And I can't get anybody to put a foundation under it because it's so dangerous. You know, we plan on building a historic looking home very similar to the Cressy house, and we're going to reuse as much as we can so that the Cressy house will be part of the new house. You know, and lastly, you know, it's time to build something new on this site. You know, it's been a blight, it's been a fire hazard, and every day that we collectively delay getting this house down, you know, we're putting all the neighbors at risk. You know, our hope is that this house is down by the end of May. You know, we really want this down before the real heat of summer, you know, hits us, when the fire hazard, you know, goes up exponentially. So that is my presentation. I open it up to any questions you might have.
Any of the commissioners have any questions? Go ahead, Jennifer.
So a few, because the house next door to mine just came down, right? We just went through this in town. We just had, well, everything changed. I had to find my person. We just had one of our historic homes come down. We just lost, you know, a piece of history that cannot be replaced in town. So it's kind of, you know, it's hard coming on the heels of that to say, hey, can we take down another one? And I understand and I respect the work that you put in on the other homes. I think the inside of your office is just, it's beautiful. But I watched the house next door come, the house that was next door to mine, I watched it come down every single day. Two guys, I talked to them, I asked them questions. My mom, I always call my mom Gladys Kravitz because she's always watching out the window, and you know, she talked to them even more than I did. So you know, just a couple things. One, I know that it did not cost the previous whoever destructor, I don't know what you would call him, developer, I don't know. It didn't cost him $25,000 to have those two guys on site for 2 weeks. So I don't know how, like, if there's looking around for more to at least save that 16 by 16 portion of the house, because it just looks so straight and pretty from the front. And then at least a portion of that house is savable, because I know, you know, the house across the street from mine as well is who knows what's going to happen with that one. But to be able to save some of the history of the house, and I get that you're trying to save some aspects of it and some portions of it. They didn't destruct the upstairs of the house next door. I mean, some of it was inside, but like they did a lot from the roof, and they used like a cherry picker or something so that they weren't falling through, because the house next door was dangerous as well. And I don't know if you watch these meetings or if you, you know, kind of keep track of what's going on in town here. The house next door was built, I guess, in such a way, kind of sounds like yours, and I haven't seen the underside of yours, but I saw the underside of this one, and there were blocks, like wood blocks and concrete blocks, and then like the frame of the house was sitting on those blocks, and it was just like, whoa, how do they build a house like that? And so I'm just curious, like if there's, you know, any of those things, if you speaking to the other developer in town, and if there's just any way to save any portion of that house. And I know that you've done a lot of research. I can see that you've done a lot of research. I respect that you've done a lot of research and questions and engineers and all of those things. But coming on the heels of having just lost another home here, it's really hard for me to hear about losing a second one.
You know, so what I would say is, you know, I don't know anything about, you know, you're saying the people that that deconstructed that house.
Mhm.
But in the end, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not free to do that. I
Right.
mean, and the company that I talked to, they specialized in that. They're
Mhm.
bonded and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
it could have been two guys that are not, have the proper licensing or anything,
No.
to do that. And
They-
two guys, doing it for 2 weeks, that's not $5,000 either, because it's dangerous work.
Mhm.
And even if you take, that number and you make it 0, okay, it's going to be free to deconstruct the house. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make economic sense to do this, and when I've got a certified engineer, as far as saving the house, even if money was no object, I mean, let's just kind of game this out about what we're saving here, So let's say that magically it can be lifted up, okay? And a foundation put under it. Okay, so now what am I saving here? Because all the siding is gone. It has to be replaced. The fir floors, you've seen pictures of the holes. I mean, the fir floor has completely lost all structural integrity. The fir floors have to be replaced. The windows are all completely destroyed. They have to be replaced. There's no original doors, no original hardware. That all has to be replaced. The walls are lath and plaster that's full of mold. That has to be replaced. The framing members, the bottom foot of the framing members are going to be, completely rotted out, which means I have to reframe the entire house. And it needs a new roof. And so when you look at, and then I have to rebuild all of these other parts of the house anyway, because I can't do anything about that and even lift up the main part of the original Cressy house. 95% of this house is going to be brand new anyway by the time I'm done, because the only thing that that you can save in this house, the only thing is that fir floor upstairs and we hope the roof trusses. That's it. Everything else is already gone. And so I understand that if you just lost another historic home, it's a hard hard thing, and it's not your job, not this society's job to give demo permits. But yeah, I mean at this point, I can't throw enough money at this. I mean, if I can't get anybody, I mean, I'm asking people to spend 2-3 weeks digging under this house. I mean, you're welcome. I can meet you over there. You can go in and take a look at it. Like I said, it's going to be you and me alone, and I'm probably going to have my lawyer write up an affidavit for you to sign saying that if you fall through the floor and hurt yourself, you're not going to sue me, because it is that dangerous. I mean, it's just, if somebody had looked at this house 30 years ago, hey, it'd be a different story. We could look at it. But I mean, I've got every contractor in the state that, that lifts homes, and none of them will touch this. And so.
And you, Fred had said something that you were going to let us know, because I remember the last time you came in and you had been talking about moving the house from Walnut Avenue. So that's no longer.
Yeah. So let me tell you about that. That was our plan until a month ago. And I talked to Fred about this. Our plan was to take this one down, and then it was to move 275 Monmouth. And I actually called Aaron Young, the owner of the house, and had him, because I wanted permission to bring the house mover over there just to kind of refresh the quotes and everything like that for moving it, and kind of look at the routes and everything like that. And Aaron wouldn't let me on the property. He said, yeah, me and my partners decided we're not going to sell to you. End of story. So I have no idea what his plans are, but it's not, he won't even let me on the property anymore.
Any other questions from commissioners regarding the application for demolition and the testimony presented?
I have a question regarding information for the building. Like, I know you're gonna, you'll put a residence there, which
Yep.
fine, whatever. But are we gonna have, or do we have the ability to put any kind of, I don't know, plaque or something that commemorates what was there?
We actually plan on doing more than that. So let me tell you what our plans are. One, the photos that I've already taken, I've sent to Fred. I actually put a black and white filter and then kind of a historical filter on them. It's amazing how much better they look when they're not in color. And then, you know, we can do like a plaque kind of thing where we'll, you know, talk about the house, but we plan on having like a book that's going to come with it. It's going to have all the photographs, some of the photographs from your website. And then the other thing is the neighbor, Sarge, who lives next door to this house, he's lived in that house for 40 years. And so he actually, when he was, you know, my age and he moved into the house, he talked to the owner of Walnut, who had lived in the Walnut for 40 years. And that guy had all kinds of stories about all these different things that are going, really interesting stories about all these kinds of things that, you know, have happened with the house and that kind of thing. And so we plan on kind of sitting Sarge down and, you know, writing, you know, kind of getting his, you know, getting the history of the Cressy house over, you know, basically the last like 80 years, because that's kind of what this guy knows. And then, you know, kind of creating a book, you know, that'll be part of the house. So that is part of our plan too.
So then could the book be printed twice so that our history
absolutely
museum could have a copy?
Yeah. So
like,
yeah,
I feel like
it's actually kind of fascinating, you know.
You know,
so,
I just think it's important that we keep the history with town.
And we do too. Yeah, we do too. So, but yeah, no, that's easily, yeah, that's absolutely we can do that. So
I'm finished with my questions.
Any other commissioners have any questions about the testimony?
So,
okay, let's see here.
So Karen did send me a comment that.
Yeah, I got that too, that we've got some additional comments. So I think that's all the comments in favor. Is that correct, Karen? That's correct. We do have some written testimony received in opposition, which I think Karen will be reading into the record.
Yes. We received an email from Carol Chavert, and she says, hello, I'm writing in response to your notice to hold a public hearing to consider a request to demolish the home at 46 North Walnut Street. I am urging you, if there is any possible, not to allow demolition this house. It is part of this historic neighborhood and in my opinion would be a great loss to our neighborhood. Obviously, it is not currently habitable and would need a great deal of restoration. Are there historic restoration loans that might assist someone to do this? Could it be sold to a contractor or someone willing to remodel and restore it? My home at 46 Log Cabin Street, same location as this home, but one street over, built in 1890, was in poor condition before Howard Altemat purchased and remodeled / restored it many years ago. The 120-plus-year-old home at 193rd Street, corner of 3rd and C Street, was in extreme disrepair before someone purchased and repaired it. My hope is that this house can have a similar fate. It is sad that the house was allowed to deteriorate to this state. It seems that a person who owns a historic house should have some obligation to keep it in decent repair or sell it if unable to do so. As you mentioned in the subchapter of the City Development Code, part of the purpose of the commission is to encourage the rehabilitation and ongoing upkeep of historic resources. I hope that can happen in this case. Thank you for your consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Carol Chavert. And also, Ms. Chavert is here in the audience and has been watching the testimony. And Mr. Tidmore, if you would call her, she would be willing to come in and make further comments.
Sorry, what was her last name again?
Chavert.
Severe?
S-H, Chavert.
Chavert. I would like Ms. Chavert to come in to give testimony if she could, please.
If you would go to the podium right there, they should be able to hear you.
It's muted. It's muted.
Okay. One moment. Oops. I'll be right there. I have to unmute you. Okay, there we go. And there you are right there.
Okay. Hello.
Hi. Can you scoot a little bit closer to the computer, Ms. Chavert? Thank you.
You want to move your purse so that way you can get a little closer to because the microphones aren't that good.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
Okay. Thank you for hearing me. And I'm sorry that you, Jennifer, had to go through that experience of losing the house next door to you. Obviously, you heard my concerns, and now I understand that you have tried everything possible in order to save the house, and it sounds like it just isn't possible to save it. So I unhappily do understand that that it will have to be demolished. But I'm very happy that you are saving part of it. It's almost going to be kind of reborn in another house.
Way I think about it too.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, thank you. All the concerns I had were addressed. So and I thank you, Jennifer, for asking your questions as well. So
And I thank you for coming and being involved and asking your questions. It's important.
yeah, I just hate to lose that house, but
yeah.
Okay. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the applicant wish to rebut any of the testimony?
No?
Okay. Are there any further questions from commissioners? Do you wish to clarify any of the testimony, Fred, or the facts?
No, I don't believe so.
Are there any further questions from commissioners? Okay, I'd like to add 2 points to consider. One, a lot of the points that the applicant made about the house being a blight and a danger were actually officially echoed. I'm surprised you didn't have that in the application, Mr. Tomson, the letter that we provided the state.
Yeah.
The commission took an official stance on that property with the state, not in regards to whether it was ready for demolition, but that it was a blight, a fire hazard, and a nuisance. And I just want everybody to be clear that it's tough losing multiple homes in a short period, but the application is in a vacuum all by itself. And try not to let anything outside the actual facts presented enter your judgment. That's all I have to say. Okay, so if no one objects, I'd like to close the public hearing. Okay, the hearing is now closed. And now we deliberate the application. Does anybody have any comments?
I have a comment on, I am, I'm going to move it, we approve it, but on the recommendation, the way Fred spelled out the condition, I think it is very important that we urgently do whatever Kyle talked about doing to preserve this, because I understand his need to get the demolition done fast. And I'm not sure the mechanics of how to go about this in that our museum director and curator are both working remotely, and how can he and Fred and any of the rest of us get involved quickly to get done whatever we can do as part of the conditions? Or do we need to spell out more on the conditions, or do we just let it go?
What conditions are you proposing?
Fred worded it. Pardon?
What were the conditions you proposed?
I'm just looking at the way Fred worded it on page 9 on his recommendation, the staff recommendation, subject to one condition, which I agree with that. I just don't know do we need to go any further with how to state that as far as the mechanics are really making that happen. I'm looking at page 9 of 55.
Yeah, the condition, the applicant shall coordinate with the museum and the Preservation Commission
Correct.
Honestly, I think that they probably already documented as much as the museum would want in photos.
I was going to say also that it does look like some of the photos that have been attached to the application, could certainly totally be used in a lot of the instances.
Right.
And if the, the other thing too is if the building falls apart while we're deliberating this, time maybe is.
I get it.
Here's the thing is, I don't think that the applicant really can document any more than what he already has. It's an unsafe structure. We certainly shouldn't be asking him to go in it.
You're right. You're right.
I think
And I guess what I was really getting at was on the salvage part, and I think he already did answer that. I guess he did, is that because of the safety limitations,
right.
that's just kind of a wait and see and do the best you can.
Right. I mean, it's clear that the applicant wants to use as much salvage material as he can. I mean, it behooves him to, and I know what he's talking about, lumber prices. I'm familiar with those. They've been going through the roof along with steel, brick, stone, and every other thing. So I'm sure that economically he's going to be motivated to do that, even if he weren't already a preservationist at heart, which I think we all get.
You can believe that, yeah.
Okay, so the consensus I'm getting is, but I've heard from John and I know how I feel, but are we all kind of moving towards approving this? Is there anyone that's thinking there's a problem?
No, I think, as far as the condition is concerned, I think we've kind of covered that as having been met now.
Yeah, I think that I think we're all kind of on the same page with this. We've talked a lot about the property going into it. I know that doesn't enter our decision today, but we were all kind of pre-educated. I think that the chair would definitely entertain a motion at this point.
To approve the application.
I move that we approve the proposal. Oh, I'm
Excuse me.
sorry.
Excuse me, can I?
Go ahead, Ann.
Can I read a suggested motion, please?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. To approve the application for demolition of the structures located at 46 North Walnut Street, file number CA-2021-03, adopting findings, conditions, and staff recommendations as provided in the staff report.
And you were recommending that they pass condition number 2, if I recall correctly, Fred?
I was recommending that condition, just coordinating with you and the Heritage Museum to determine how best to.
I know, but the finding basically was that they met.
Oh yeah, the criteria itself was the second
based on
criteria.
the economic return.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, would someone like to adopt that sample motion?
I'll adopt it.
I move that we adopt it exactly as Karen read it. And I'll second it, Ann.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion from Ann Devane and a second from John Young. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Okay, and none opposed. Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson.
All right, thank you.
Excellent job. Well done.
You'll be happy with what's going to be on the property. I can guarantee that. It's important to us.
Okay.
So.
Okay, Fred, did you have some other items for us?
Yes. So let me find where the agenda is. So where is? What's next? What does it say is next on the
Says
agenda?
properties potentially undergoing demolition by neglect.
Okay, seems appropriate to talk about demolition by neglect, because I mean, fundamentally, this is why some of these, I mean, Miss Chevert's, I think that's the last name, concern is exactly right. We don't want properties to get to the point where the demolition is the only option, right? And we've got some properties that are definitely going downhill. And so a while ago, we sent out the all call for properties that you folks might think are applied to that demolition by neglect standard that we have in our code. You'll remember that we recently just adopted that demolition by neglect provision. So we sent out an all call. I don't think we got many responses. We got just a couple of properties. So I mean, is there any properties that you think that we should most be worried about, or what are your thoughts? How should we go from here?
There's the one that's closest to the City Hall.
Yeah.
And there's one, I don't know if it made the list. It's on 4th Street it's basically on the next block from where I am. It's a boarded up White House.
Oh, yeah,
I worry about the one at the corner of 7th and Monmouth.
yeah.
Exactly, me too.
Yeah, Fred, don't you have a list? Because I think
He didn't get many responses from us, is what he's saying.
I sent something.
Right. You're the only one that sent something in. I didn't want to say that.
Well, I thought that because we had a meeting and some of us brought the addresses up at that meeting,
Yeah.
those were also taken down. So
Yeah.
because I voiced my concern,
Yeah, okay.
I didn't send an email.
We had asked the question essentially if there's any others, send them along. So.
If there are any others. So I thought that
gotcha.
the ones that I addressed were taken in already.
Yeah, okay.
So the 7th and Monmouth, the one closest to the City Hall, the boarded up one on 4th Street, are there any others?
The one across the street from my house on Main. Oh, that's City Hall. Yeah. No, City Hall or the Civic Center?
Yeah, that's the first one.
That's the first one I mentioned.
Well, City Hall, I'm like, is that the one on Monmouth? It's
No,
now
no,
parallel
Current
45,
City Hall.
that's Civic
Current-
Center.
Current City Hall. And also the one across from the old City Hall, not the one closest to Stonehenge, but the other one we're concerned about because
75, wasn't that it?
yeah, because it's in good condition, but it's starting to tilt a little, I think.
Yes.
Queen tilt.
So what can we do about those, Fred?
So, I mean, I guess I kind of wanted to get a list, and then I wanted to talk with the city manager just about the best way to proceed with that with the city council, just to let them know that it's something that we're thinking about and reacquaint folks with that demolition by neglect section, and just try and get some guidance about where to go.
I think there's one property in that group that kind of differs from all the others, and that's the 7th and Monmouth. Most of the other ones are either vacant or the one, the 275 Monmouth, the one on 4th, and the one near City Hall. Those are all vacant. And it differs from the one on 7th and Monmouth. I think we have an owner occupied who would probably be willing. It's a needs issue from what I've heard in previous discussions. And so we should treat those a little different, treat that one a little differently from the other three. I think
that one should be priority.
we should actively engage in trying to find alternative funding
For that one.
for that one. The other ones, I think, are investor owned, so to speak.
Okay, I think that's good. So I'll try and share my screen here one more time. Let me see what
What
I'm
about
doing.
that woman that talked to us a couple of months ago from Salem? Fred?
Oh, yeah, right. So
I mean, wasn't there deadlines, to?
yeah, they don't have a ton of money. I mean, there's not just a ton of money that gets thrown at historic preservation. So hold on, let me, so
Okay.
Anne, when she sent hers, she identified this property too. This is down at the end of Fifth. Henry Hill is about right here. And this piece right here is probably another one of those just vacant, and it looks vacant to me. What's interesting about this, and I read the designation about this, is this building actually, and we can't see it based on this, but it's a twin of this one. And this one looks real nice, but this one clearly has seen better days. At this point, this is a historic non-contributing house. But yeah, it doesn't look the best. Another one that Anne brought up is not in the district, and I'll drop a pin by that.
Okay.
Is it the one with the corner of the porch coming down on the south end of the porch?
Are
Oh,
you thinking
That one
on
was just purchased
Main Street?
by someone who intends to restore.
That one.
A few blocks down from you, Jennifer?
Yes.
Excellent.
This
one?
building here is one that that Ann mentioned, but this is not in the district.
Right.
The district doesn't go down Third.
So question,
What's that?
Wow.
Well,
just because it's not part of the district doesn't make it not part of the history of our town. So I feel like we should still be concerned with it.
Our mandate
I guess I don't have a good map of the district then.
Okay. I can get that to you. Because we didn't have a good map of the district for a while, and last year I handed one out. So yeah, so this is one of them. I mean, what somebody mentioned about the porch coming down, that was one that I identified on Main Street when I was sort of.
They've got it propped up on one end. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely one that I noted. There was one too that, I mean, it's a beautiful house, and I think someone is living in it. Oh, come on, give me a north arrow. Is
What street?
I want to say it's E. I don't know if this is it. It's got a huge hedge in front of it, so people don't typically see it. But
Right.
It has some scaffolding next to it.
Yes, it's had scaffolding for as long as I've lived here.
Right.
Yeah. That's a nice house, but has seen better days.
Yeah.
They're doing work on the backside of it.
They are?
I think so.
So it has, I mean, it has been getting work done.
I didn't see anything in particular on that would qualify for a demolition by neglect, but my memory's a little spotty on that.
Yeah, maybe that's correct. So I mean,
I think it just doesn't have the curb appeal because it's kind of in a state of, they're working on it.
Gotcha.
Slowly.
Cool. So those were just the couple other ones that I could think about. There was one that Ann mentioned that's right now it's further down on C, and right now it's like half constructed, or further down on E, it's this guy, which right now is basically just a frame of a building.
Didn't we approve a demolition on that?
I think a demolition was approved at one point, but then he's coming in and trying to use part of the building, and I don't know what's going on with it. We issued a permit there a while ago and work started, and now work has stopped again.
Would have been
So-
way a while ago, because that would have been before me.
Something that we've already approved a demolition on, we shouldn't really get too concerned as far as trying to do anything with, other than, I mean, how long do they have to demolish after they get a permit from us?
We don't, I mean, this is one thing that might make sense to add into the code somewhere, is some length of permit approvals. Because right now our code is silent about how long a permit approval is good for.
There was a permit issued for demolition on a home just to the first home that's south of the current museum. It was issued before I joined the commission. And then,
Oh, yeah, that.
and then they rented the house out, and there was no other talk about it. And honestly, when I read the application and the kind of rationale used to determine whether it should be demolished or not, well, it didn't seem like the best logic. And I thought, wow, I can't believe they issued a demolition permit based on that. And that was back in 2016. And so I'm concerned about that house. The main thing is I think the house is solid, but it's without foundation. But it's higher off the ground. It's not like this last one that we just approved the demolition permit on.
Plus,
Yeah.
they just painted it. They painted it gray.
I don't think they painted it.
I think you're thinking this one, Curtis?
Correct.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
Oh, that one. Okay. I'm thinking of another one.
because I mean, I did note
Hold on
this
a
too.
second,
I mean,
man.
The structure seems to appears solid, but from what I understand, it needs a foundation. And that's one of these things I think that we should be concerned about, because that's salvageable.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if it doesn't get a foundation under it in 20 or 30 years, it may not be salvageable.
Right.
As we've just heard with the last two homes we
Right.
approved.
But with the weird thing about this, and that's why I asked about the time length on demolition permits, is the commission previous to when I was on actually approved a demolition permit, I think in 2015 or 16.
For this house?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't even remember that. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was that house. My memory may be mistaken. I mean, that was 5 years ago.
So I have another question about a home in the historic district, right? That I guess it was recently a changed ownership and painted and is now being rented. But there were no structural things done. It was just made to look nice, but it looks like it has some structural issues. So like, is that one of the houses that should be on the list? What, Kurt?
You're talking about the one on Second, the blue one?
Yeah.
That was another one, the one that the gentleman who bought the collapsed roof building next door.
Quiros
And
Ramirez.
cleaned up the yard, painted it, but it's kind of set, the building's starting to sag on one side. And
Yep.
that's one that definitely we should keep our eye on.
But rather than keeping our eye, what if we addressed it with the homeowner and said, hey, there are these
Oh, I'm
loans,
sorry.
instead of sitting around and waiting for, it to get worse.
Yeah.
It's like dental work. That's why you go in every 6 months, so that you don't end up with a mouthful of crowns and root canals.
Right.
right.
well, ideally, yes. Yeah, but I mean, what what can we tell people? We're not walking in with a checkbook saying we're
No,
going
of course not. But if we have the information on, who has grants or loans or things of that nature, and we have people who are interested in
Well,
historic homes,
the carrot, we also need to work with the stick too, and that's where Fred's going to talk with the city manager and see what our options are there.
could I?
So this brings up a point I wanted to talk, when Jennifer said something about we should be concerned even if it's not in the district, but Kurt said it's not really our mandate unless it's in the district. So that is true for us. It's not in our mandate unless it's in the historic district, but the city manager has a lot broader brush. So that's between him and Fred. We would still be concerned, but we need to mostly be concerned about ones in the district. Right?
Right. I just, as soon as we step out of the district, it's kind of outside our,
Yeah, right.
I mean, we can talk all we want, but the fact is we don't have any purview on those homes.
Right. One thing I was
Regulatory issues, rather.
thinking of is the people that are buying the house that we approved for demolition. Those are the kind of people that we're going to do a historic preservation award, and those are the kind of people that we should be talking to, that we're going to be doing that. In other words, to encourage those people to keep getting involved. In other words, even though they maybe might have to knock that particular house down, they might be attracted to talking to other people that do that too. Historic preservation.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that makes
I think we're at a point that we've exhausted what we can do right now on that until you talk to the city manager. Is that the way you're saying?
Yep, that sounds good. And so I'll talk to him about it. I do, Curtis, like your conceptual framework of the idea that some of these houses are a little different because people are in them. And I think that will be important. I mean, that is an important consideration for how we approach these.
Right. I mean, and I think that government has always kind of looked at, there is a difference between an owner occupied structure and a investor owned structure.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's good. That might be a good place for us to stop today, because I know that Karen has a meeting at 6. Karen, is that right? And I think that she wants time to set up for that meeting. Is that correct, Karen?
and that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other last minute things that need to be mentioned? Okay.
Fred, good work on that application.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
See y'all next time.